Hey everybody, welcome back to the garden, our peaceful place for pondering that crazy world out there. Tonight we're going to be looking at something from Arielle Scarcella, excuse me, who is an interesting individual for several reasons, not the least of which being that she seems to be stubbornly straddling the ever-widening gap between the former gay rights, now trans rights movement and women's rights. Both of which she's very passionate about. And this we're going to be seeing tonight is her responding to a young ex-friend of hers who simply cannot wrap their head around any of it. But first, real quick, like this video if you enjoy this kind of content to let me and the algorithm both know that, and subscribe to the channel for more stuff just like that. Well, very much like this. All right, let's go. Let's see what Arielle has to say.
Most, if not all, of the issues that are being talked about are because feminism and trans issues and trans rights continuously, honestly, they're butting heads.
Yes, they are. Continuously. That's exactly right.
Let's just get right into the video.
Arielle Scarcella is not a bad person. Arielle is one of the nicest people that I know. If you put politics, Arielle is one of the nicest people that I know.
Let's hear it again.
Put politics and trans discourse and the internet aside.
Except, of course, that they cannot.
You know, Arielle and I have always had a relationship in which was kind of like an aunt relationship. If I was upset about something, she would text me. She would go out of her way to, give me advice, and it was always genuinely good advice.
Well, gosh, Arielle sounds like a good friend.
Video called Arielle is not transphobic. I put hours of editing into this video because I believed that people were wrong about you. I believed that you genuinely cared about the way the trans community
about you, right?
Community was seen, the way that the trans community was treated. But I'm sorry to say, looking back, I don't think Arielle is transphobic, and I don't think Arielle's a full-on TERF, but I regret making that video because I think a lot of the content that Arielle puts out is just bait for TERFs.
Okay, so it's very interesting because despite later going into, to great pains to actually define the word TERF, they throw it around to mean something more like heretic. As this, here we go. Watch
this shit had me geeked. She put this on her story the other day. Tell me this is not a TERF book. This was all. I've never read the book. I haven't fucking read the book. But you cannot tell me that this book was probably not written by a TERF.
Okay. Well, I don't see the word feminist on there anywhere. I don't see the words radical feminism on there anywhere. I don't see anything about that. I see the word transgender, maybe trans exclusive, except that, again, didn't read the book, so we wouldn't know, would we?
The transgender craze seducing our daughters.
But I suppose if you're going by, the meaning of heretic, this definitely qualifies as heretical to the transgender ideology, doesn't it?
And Arielle full-on endorses this. This is what I'm saying. This is in complete contradiction of the way she acts towards me and my friends.
Because she acts accepting of them, but she explains that. We will see why she makes this distinction here in just a moment.
Like, really?
It's unfortunate that he admitted to not even reading or literally even looking into anything about the book and what the book is actually critiquing and criticizing, which is actually hilarious because it literally proves just how crazy this transgender rights activist movement thing is.
I mean, yeah, I suppose, because he absolutely just literally judged the book by its cover, which I suppose, metaphorically speaking, they don't want you to do because you shouldn't, assume someone's gender, right? But you can assume the politics of a book.
The book specifically talks about teenage girls who actually do not have gender dysphoria. They have all these other issues. They have anxiety, depression, maybe BPD. These are the same type of young girls, I should say, that in the past would be cutters, suicidal, into witchcraft, as she
So what is...
says Abigail, the author
what
of
are
the
you
book,
getting
talks
at?
about this in the podcast with Joe Rogan. I agree with it. And these young women are truly in a lot of mental and physical discomfort, but most of them aren't experiencing gender dysphoria.
So that's the key difference for you. In Arielle's mind, that's the key difference. Okay. But, what is dysphoria exactly? It's a very generic word, really. It just means discomfort, disaffection, ennui, right? And how do you test for it? Apparently it makes you trans, so that might be a very important detail.
The book isn't about trans people. It's about young women, bio women that are not experiencing gender dysphoria. Why is it so cool for people to care about trans kids, but not cool to talk about, issues that are directly affecting young women? Like why? Misogyny, maybe?
Ooh, she might be onto something there. But nobody wants to talk about the misogyny. Nobody wants to talk about the issues and how they affect young girls specifically, because that's exclusionary, right? And anything that doesn't directly center trans people specifically is either assumed to and therefore interpreted negatively, or, it's exclusionary, right?
And no, Calvin, these issues that I'm talking about have nothing to do with me standing up for people that actually have gender dysphoria and want to transition and are going to alleviate their dysphoria by doing so. And
that's very specific criteria. I guess so she's a medicalist, right? That's what that means. It's gatekeeping, right? Which, I've heard is transphobic, but, what do I know?
Not contradicting what I say to you, Ryan, Sam, London, whoever in private. These issues have nothing to do with you.
It's not that Arielle's a full-on turf. I mean, Arielle doesn't exclude trans people.
Except that she just did. That is a puzzler. She excludes trans people who don't have dysphoria. So, yeah, to use the lingo, she is a medicalist who believes in true trans people, which, implies that she believes that everyone else is a trender. I'm not sure what you would call those people, but they may or may not be trans. Apparently, just claiming that is not enough for her, which I have to agree there.
Ryan and everybody else that has made videos about me literally say that I am not a TERF. You literally say you don't think I'm a TERF, but you're getting angry. So while you and Ryan both admit that you don't think I'm a TERF, you don't think I'm transphobic, but you get mad at me when I'm talking about issues that directly affect females.
Yeah, well, because they don't want to do that. First of all, they want you to toe the line, right? But, they don't want to accept this idea that you are a heretic because, well, first of all, apparently this person likes you very much. So, it might not be, you might not want to accept the idea that someone who, has been very kind to you and been your friend is a heretic, right? And then also you have to accept the idea that, oh my gosh, you were associating with a heretic.
Abigail, the author of that book, notes in her studies when she talked to multiple psychiatrists and psychologists while writing that book that there is a 4,000% increase of young women, bio women that are identifying as transgender in the UK, claiming to have gender dysphoria.
Again, how can so many girls claim to have gender dysphoria when they apparently do not, right? That's what she's implying here. So easily. That's really scary, right? There's no test for it. You can literally just walk in and be like, yeah, I hate my body. And they'll be like, there you go.
Interview with Joe Rogan, she also notes that
no Joe Rogan.
Maybe there are a lot more trans people than before because now it's more accepted and it's more visible. If that were the case, and this is the point she makes, wouldn't trans women and trans men in their 40s, 50s, 60s also be coming out and being, more prominent? But
that's a really good point. And I hadn't actually considered that until now. I think it really, really speaks to something relating to this next point she makes.
Not what's happening. It's overwhelmingly just seen in teenage girls.
Almost as if gender dysphoria is somehow like a feature of girlhood in our culture, right? I mean, that would explain a lot. It dissipates with age, though. And all the studies show this. And what she's saying here, supports that as well. That's why you don't have older, trans men coming out. It's almost as if maybe if you just left even the ones with dysphoria alone, they would eventually get over it.
She also mentions in the book and the podcast that you are 70% more likely to identify as trans if you are a young woman if one of your friends is trans. And I think,
how is that not conclusive? At least enough to put the brakes on any sort of surgical intervention. Oh my God.
Honestly, and I think that makes a lot of sense. I think when we're teenagers and in life in general, I think we tend to gravitate towards people who we feel are going to validate us. Even if we're not experiencing the exact same thing, if you see somebody being validated when they come out as trans and you think, wow, that person is now being loved and being respected, maybe that's the answer for me.
Okay. sort of. Like, I think it's more along the lines of you just want to be happy, right? You see somebody over there who is going through something that really resembles your experience, and they've gone through this process and they seem happy. Maybe you also want to be happy.
Mentions in the book that a lot of these therapists that have done studies with these young women that think they're trans are the same type of young women that, when I was in high school, would be cutters, would be emo, would be suicidal, would be into witchcraft. All
one of these things is not like the others.
These other things. Is it wrong for me to say that I feel like people that don't have gender dysphoria, that this is a new, different way of self-harm?
What if it is for the ones with gender dysphoria also? Prove to me it isn't. Prove to me the plastic surgery isn't just an addictive, expensive rabbit hole.
Or it's a new way of them feeling like this is their way out of the pain. A pain that they are truly experiencing, right? But it is not the answer to that pain. This is not the, like, if you don't have gender dysphoria, this is not the answer to that pain.
Why is this the answer if you do? I don't see any evidence of that given here, certainly. And my personal experience tends to lead me to believe that you don't need this treatment if you have dysphoria either. What you need is, time and experience and maybe some therapy.
And literally, very, 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 very few people are talking about this.
Like I said, Arielle is genuinely a nice person. That's not me defending her. You guys know that if I thought Arielle was a piece of shit, I'd fucking say it. But
you're not defending her by saying she's a nice person. I mean, okay, that is really what that looks like, I have to admit.
I don't feel right sitting back and not standing up for things that directly affect us. It's that simple for me. I don't feel right not speaking up against trans issues when they directly affect me.
Yes, rock on, sister. And I feel like this is what really drew me to her in the first place here recently, was this sort of intellectual honesty. That's the only way I know to describe this, where she really seems to want to think things through in a logical way to try and resolve any cognitive dissonance that she has, to resolve conflicting ideas. She really and ironically, this spot that she has, camped out at has just, ended up, she's having to try to bridge this divide more and more. So, she's having to fight this battle over and over again. It's quite something to behold.
One of them, the title was going to be Trans Women Are Male.
Well, they are.
And I forgot to mention this in the video, but we got her to change the title to, like, something different. I guess she changed the Trans Women Are Not Female. But it's just like, oh my god, I feel bad for London. Like, it's just awkward.
Blair literally says that she is a bio male all the time, never gets shit for it because she knows the truth. I think, Calvin, you and I just disagree on.
Okay, well, that's Blair White, I guess, who we're talking about now, which, Blair does say that. Blair has a habit of saying things like, well, duh, I'm a male. Why do you think I had to transition? Right? And Arielle's exactly right. Blair does not get flack for that, because that is the invisible double standard that's going on here.
Such a kind heart. I hate saying this, but was all that niceness really because she genuinely wanted to be friends with a bunch of 18-year-old trans people? Or is it because she wanted to use us in her videos to justify everything she was saying?
Why can't...
That's so sad. Right? Like, this kid had a good friend, and this conflict, can't be anywhere in themselves, right? So it has to be, coming from the person who's making them feel these feelings. And, it's causing him to not be able to be friends with her anymore, and that's really sad. Okay, this one is quick, but what's said here is that genital preferences are not transphobic.
Check it out.
Here's the thing, genital preferences are not transphobic. I agree with Arielle on that.
That's very interesting because, you're just cherry picking things now, right? How exactly do you determine what is and is not transphobic? Things that make you sad?
Because the point of the matter is that Arielle isn't excluding trans people. You look at the definition of TERF, which is trans exclusionary radical feminist. I don't think Arielle excludes trans people because she's not outrightly transphobic. But she says things and makes videos that are fuel for TERFs. And there were tons of times.
So she's not a heretic because she's nice to you, even though she says heretical things. That's a very convenient definition for you. You know, if you want to be friends with someone who doesn't agree with you on a thing that may not be disagreed upon, right? And anyways, we've established, and we're going to hear a little bit more about how she does exclude certain trans people as long as they don't have dysphoria. In Arielle's mind, you have to have dysphoria to be trans. And apparently having dysphoria is what makes you trans. I don't know that we ever addressed specifically whether it's possible to have dysphoria and not be trans, but it certainly does not go the other way here. Whew. You're getting me in my fuzzy robe because it's getting cold out here.
Affect young women. Self-ID is a horrible idea. I have made tons of videos showing how these new self-identification laws and how some transgender rights laws are directly affecting bio women. My buddy Mars.
But like, they don't care about that. It's very evident. It's becoming more and more evident that that is the case. And, you know, like I say, Arielle's very existence at this point pretty much demonstrates how that is affecting people. But like, they don't care because it's not about them.
People aren't paying attention to lesbians. People aren't paying attention to the experiences of, you know, these young bio women who probably are lesbians or bisexual or some kind of other sexual orientation other than straight.
Yep.
And
what else is new?
About trans rights. And I think we need to focus on both.
Arielle, I think only someone with your mental fortitude could focus on both of those at the same time.
I don't advocate for every single trans person, especially not trans people like this. And you guys should be fucking happy.
Because no one should advocate for trans people like this. She's talking about this nasty quote that was up, you know. No one should be advocating for sex offenders to be in women's spaces or women's prisons or spas or any of that. And yet, this is where we find ourselves. Because of things like this, you know, the splitting of the hairs, where everyone gets to have their own definition, their own opinion about what is the truth. You know, and like I say, I respect how the obvious effort that Arielle has put into constructing her paradigm here, but I really wish that she would maybe get the hint that it doesn't quite work.
And you guys should be fucking happy that I don't.
I have love for you, Arielle. Anytime that you have helped me, you know, when I was going through a really bad breakup, I know Arielle, that's one thing I really remember. She stayed up really texting me. Anytime that I've hung out with Arielle, she was very respectful, very nice. I never personally felt like Arielle was transphobic towards me, which is why throughout this entire video, I have not called her TERF, I have not called her transphobic. But I do believe the things that she says are fueling people that are transphobic and are.
So, you know, we're not going to come right out and call her a heretic because you wouldn't want to associate or have love for a heretic, but her rhetoric is fueling the heretics, and that's a concern for you.
I think it's because, you know, my feminist self is going to disagree with a lot of the new trans rights laws. It's very, very, very difficult to walk down a perfect line between the two without pissing off, you know, one or both sides of each community.
That's because those two things are mutually exclusive, hun. You know, Arielle stubbornly insists on trying to bridge the ever-widening gulf, opening up under her long-held position. She can't ride the trans train all the way to the end of the line. She has to get off at women's rights, which, you know, respect for that. Hold the line, hun. But, I feel like this position is ultimately going to be unsustainable. And she's going to have to pick a side sooner or later. Here's hoping maybe she'll leave the trans community like she left the left a while back. You know, she's been toying with certain conservative ideas for a while now, and like, hun, you don't have to just leap from one camp to the other. There's more than two options. It's a false dichotomy. You should try coming over to just some plain old feminist communities, because boy, are there a few of them popping up these days. So that's been our little visit with Arielle. You know, much love to her. Goodness knows she's got herself in a tight position there. Trying to bridge that gap between, the former LGBT, now T community and women's rights. They used to be connected, right? You used to be able to do both. And you can't really do that anymore. And it's very sad for these young people. They cannot wrap their minds around that their friend respects them and then says these things in public, right? And to her, the difference is apparently all of her friends have dysphoria. Although, again, I'm not even sure how you would know that, because you can't test for it. And if dysphoria dissipates with time, then just leave them alone. None of those girls need that intervention. None of them. And I don't care if that hurts anybody's feelings, because sometimes, when you love somebody, you have to tell them the hard truth. And this has been my personal lived experience, okay? I had, at one point, for like 15 years or better, what now would be called gender dysphoria. So bad that, like, at times I had difficulty leaving the house, and it was a long slog to get through it, but I did get through it, okay? And I'm so glad. There but for the grace of time go I. And it's really scary to me that women like Arielle are championing any of this, especially this just nebulous concept of dysphoria. What is that, Arielle? What is that? Why is that the key tell, okay? Why is that the difference? And what even is it? How would you measure that? How do you not just take somebody's word for that? If self-ID is a bad idea, then dysphoria, like, it's just an extra level of self-ID, hun. Okay? And that's where we gotta leave it. Unfortunately, we're still out here in the woods, but we will find our way home soon, and I'm gonna go see if I can find some more stuff to poke at with you guys. And like the video if you enjoyed this. Subscribe to the channel for more stuff like this, and I will see you guys around. Bye.